Hey, welcome everybody to Drunk Dudes in a Gun Room, man. This is going to be a show you don't want to miss. I've got, I've had some great authors that have came on this story, but the one that I've got today, I love these kind of books, and I think a lot of you guys are going to be able to relate to them. So let's get a little Gun Room Radio advertisement going, and then we'll get into it. Come listen to the best music in Gun Room Radio. All of the artists that are performing are within the military family. Their songs are authentic, and the music and the camaraderie is amazing. So I want you to come and listen. Have a great time. Check us out at gunroomradio.airtime.pro or on Facebook at Gunroom Radio. Hey, welcome everybody. Hey, today we have got Coast Guard veteran Zach Greenlee. Hey, Zach, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm great. Thank you. How are you?
Oh, I'm great, man. So,
Good.
give everybody a little quick background of how you came about military interest and what brought you to the military.
First of all, I'm curious. How many coasties have you had on the show before?
You are the second. I've invited
Second.
3, but only 2 have came on. You were the second.
Yeah. Wow, that's actually more than I thought. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Now I
great.
did have a Coast Guard spouse that was on. Does that count?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, then there
They're
would
as
be
much in the
3.
service as we are, right?
Yeah, yeah, man.
Mm-hmm. I know. I say my wife's a special forces wife because she had to
Oh,
deal with me for a
yeah.
period of time. So, how'd I get? I joined the Coast Guard when I was. I see in the papers when I was 18. I went left when I was 19, um, and I. I actually been thinking about it for a long time. I grew up in California. I spent a lot of my summers on the coast, and I remember seeing a Coast Guard cutter, uh, and in a place called Point Arena, which is on the north coast of California. And I remember seeing, oh, that's really cool. You know what they do? I think it was about 17, and that's when it first piqued my interest. And then I saw I was going to it. I was in junior college right after high school, and I saw Sebastian Junger's book. Um, Perfect Storm sitting in the bookstore and
Yeah,
picked it
man.
up and I read it and I said, "Oh, I'm in. Let's do this." And I left about I left about 9 months later for boot camp after that.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
So, so did you have any family that was in the military prior to you, or was it strictly
I
just
do.
the book that brought you to it?
I actually have a grandpa who was Coast Guard in World War II.
Okay.
So I
Yeah.
think
Well, that makes sense, man.
yeah. Yeah, his ship was sunk twice in World War II. So
Wow.
yeah, I
You know,
a lot of family, uncles in Air Force and Navy and that sort of thing too. So
yeah, man. It's funny because you was asking about the other Coast Guards. I had a guy on here that was stationed in Alaska in the Coast Guard.
oh
And
wow.
man, he gave me some history. I didn't know that some of World War II was fought right off the coast of Alaska.
Yeah, and on Atu and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
man. So I got a little bit of history from him, and you know,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
there's a lot about the Coast Guard that a lot of people don't know. When I first had the spouse was the first one I had on, so I had to ask a stupid question because in the military, in the army, and everybody's like, man, I should have went in the Coast Guard. They don't never deploy. They don't never PCS. They live in one spot. It's like the reserves
You've been
for 'em, you know?
sorely disappointed with my experience with him.
Yeah, you know. Then I was like, I wonder if that's true. If people really, and then I found out that ain't true. That you guys do PCS to different stations, and it's just
Yeah.
like the military.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so how long were you in?
So a total of 8 years. So, I got stop lost after 9/11,
Okay.
and, so I was supposed to get out in 2003, ended up getting out in 2000, off active duty in 2005. I stayed reserve for a while after that,
Okay.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
man.
uh,
And
And
so what all did you do in the Coast Guard?
I was well, first unit was a cutter. I was on the one of our high endurance cutters, which is funny. I was in boot camp. I asked for anything but a high endurance cutter. I'm like, send me to, because you get a wish list. I don't think it even matters what you put on that. But I was like,
It doesn't in the Army.
I wanted to go to an air station or something, or I said any, like any small boat station, in Northern California, any air station. I was trying to be as broad as I could. What I really wanted though was to get on one of our polar icebreakers up in Seattle.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, because they do these really cool like 6-month deployments, up or patrols. They go, up to the Arctic Circle or down to south to Antarctica. I really want to get one of those, and they put me on a 378 in San Diego. So those high endurance cutters are um, more law enforcement than anything else. It seems like
Okay.
we did a lot of drug and migrant interdiction, that sort of thing. It wasn't a really a search and rescue unit. I don't remember doing even a single um, search and rescue case off that on that cutter, and I was a non right there, or a seaman, E2, E3,
Mhm.
before I was going to A school. Um, I really wanted to go to an aviation A school, really bad, but the waits were all like 36 months and 32 months, and I mean, by the time I would have gotten there, my enlistment would have been over. And when you're 19, like 3 years sounds like, a
Yeah,
lifetime. And
absolutely.
especially if I'm gonna be a non-rate on a 378 for that long, chip and paint and so I'm not digging it. So, and also I had a girlfriend that I was really serious about, and I married shortly after I got there.
Mhm.
And so I said, okay, what's the next school going? Next school starting, and it was telecommunications specialist. I didn't even know what it was. I said, oh, okay, sign me up. Um, and so I went to TCA school. The job turned out to be different depending on what unit you're at. It's one of those kind of jobs, and so you do a lot of compsec. You do search and rescue coordination. And not at all what it sounds like, right? I mean, but
Yeah.
you're not doing it's telecommunications because you're talking on radios, I guess, and loading crypto and stuff. But apart from that, a lot of uh, you're kind of like the operator dispatcher for search and rescue units. And so after 9/11, that changed my job. Actually, the name of my job changed. We became operations specialists,
Okay.
um, and our job became a little bit more intel driven, counterterrorism intel driven. So all of a sudden they had all these A school or all these C schools opening up and stuff, and um, I tried hard to stay the search and rescue route for as long as I could. But nothing fun lasts forever, right? So,
Yeah. No,
um,
you're right.
that's just that's the way it is. But I did enjoy the search and rescue part of it. I was stationed in Port Angeles, Washington, um, and operating SAR out of there. They don't get a ton of search and rescue up there, but the stuff they do get is it's real.
Yeah.
And and every once in a while you actually get out and get to take part in rescues and stuff. And then we had portable cops trailers for disasters and that sort of thing too. So
Yeah, man.
uh, I just got I anything that any school or any opportunity that popped up, I said I'll go. Send me. I want to do everything because my plan was never to stay in. Well, would have been if I had gone aviation, probably would have stayed in a little longer. But my plan was
Yeah.
never really to stay in forever. I
Yeah.
really
Mine wasn't either, and, like, every time so Fort Bliss, I hated it. That was when my first enlistment was coming up to either reenlist or getting out, and I was like, "I'm getting the hell out of the Army, this ain't for me, screw this shit," and then I got I think they intentionally put me in such a shithole, they're like, "Oh, he'll reenlist to leave," and that's exactly what happened. Because just like you said, man, when you're young, it's like, "Man, I can either do 18 more months here or I can reenlist and do 3 more years somewhere else."
yeah.
I think I'm gonna reenlist.
Barber's Point. Yeah.
Yeah, man, and, so I reenlisted, which is not a bad gig 'cause that's the only time really you get a choice of where you're going as your first after you first reenlist. So,
Mm,
that first reenlistment, I chose, my choices was Hawaii or Germany,
yeah.
and, I chose Germany. I figured I had a better chance of affording to go to Hawaii sometime after the military than Germany, so I chose
Fair.
Germany, and man, that turned my career around. I ended up staying in for 20 years, so
Yeah.
but yeah, I was just like you, man. I was like, "I'm getting the hell out," you know?
I got to think if I had if I'd gone back to another afloat unit, I probably would have reenlisted.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause it's my only experience on a float unit was at, so I was the I was whale snot, so
Yeah.
you're whatever, painting and chipping paint just all day, or doing you know ha- there are other opportunities. You can get boarding team member qualified. You can get on the helo deck team, get on fire teams and that sort of thing too.
Yeah,
But
man.
which that's cool. But it really goes to the petty officers first. They're the ones that are going to get, hey, we need to send 11 people to BTM school. Then any petty officers raise their hand, they're going to go first.
Yeah.
But I think if I'd gone to an afloat unit, out of A school, I'd probably be telling a very different story than I am right now.
Yeah, it's funny how I think that goes for a lot of soldiers too, that career path that they get put down. Because I've seen it a lot in the Army, like, when I got out of AIT, all I said was, "I don't care where I go, I just don't wanna go to Korea." And I was like, me and 98% of the rest of the class went to Korea, and 2 guys got these amazing duty assignments, and I'd be willing to bet you that there was probably more people that stayed 20 years when they went to Korea, and then their duty assignments changed, later for the better. A lot of
Hmm.
these guys, they got these great assignments to begin with, and then they reenlisted, and then they got the green weenie and got sent to shitholes, and it became a
Yep.
rude awakening. I went to Korea, so it could only get better from there, you know? But it's weird how a lot of the stories that when you dig into these military stories, their career path follows a reasoning. Like, I hated Fort Bliss, so I ended up staying in, which created me staying in for 20 years because things got better for me. you know but that path, I think it really does dictate what happens to the career, and life experiences,
Oh
um
yeah.
wedding, getting married sometimes just bills,
Having
and
kids.
yeah, having kids just makes you stay in as well too, you know.
Yeah.
So I know you got a medical background. Did that come after the Coast Guard, or?
So I actually, for somehow I managed to get into EMT school as a TC,
Okay.
and so I was like one of the on base EMTs, um, and I also was working for a volunteer fire department in Port Angeles, and really liked it. Really liked the medical part of it,
Mhm.
um, and when I got out, for what I was looking at was I just wanted to go to paramedic school. I really wanted to, dig in deeper, and that's what I did. Got out, went to paramedic school, absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
Um, the medical side, I like the medical aspect, that the impact you get to have on people and the challenge of it. Especially, at the time, and I don't have quite the taste for emergency medicine and trauma like I used to, but
Mhm.
at the time, that was where I wanted to be. I wanted to be in the middle of wherever, what city am I nearest that has the most trauma? Where could
Yeah.
I go where I'm gonna see nightly shootings and that sort of thing? And I just I wanted to be yeah, I was young. I wanted to be a hero,
Yeah, I
and
get it, man.
yeah.
And I think that's so it's not uncommon. That's you think about it. All these people that get out of the military, and there's more people that become firefighters, they become police officers, paramedics, doctors. They're all in the service industry,
Mhm.
because of that same reason. They just care, and they like the feeling of being able to help others. And I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of military guys that that comes from. You know, a lot of people think it's just about war and everything, but they don't know a lot about the all the psyops trips where you're out there and you're in orphanages talking to the kids, trying to get intel from little kids, and at the same time playing games and seeing how poor they're living, and they're in these you know group homes is what we would call them, but they're in orphanages that are barely being taken care of. you
Yeah.
know and
Absolutely.
and we're just milking them, trying to get information of how many Taliban guys have walked by or what kind of stuff they've seen. But to them, we're playing games and giving away candy and having good times. But you start becoming compassionate when you're doing these things, and that sense of, man, I'm over here trying to make it better for these kids, because now I'm putting faces to the mission,
Yeah.
whether that be true or not, that doesn't matter, but it's something you're rationalizing. And I think
Mhm.
that same thing comes about with, when you get out, that continue to wanna serve and help your community and just make things better.
Oh,
That
yeah. I mean,
doesn't go
it's a
away.
major driving force
Yeah,
for I think it's one of the major driving forces for a lot of people that join the military too.
it is.
It's like they, even if they're, going in to, they're gonna be, 11 Bravo, it's not, you have this kind of drive to help. Like, yeah, that's why you're doing it.
Yep,
It's and or to be part of the solution or to in some way, leave a positive mark on the world, in some way. And um, so yeah, that I think that is a common thread that runs through
yeah.
most people I mean, most veterans.
I had a soldier that was a paramedic before he came in the military, and I asked him, I said, "Why did you come in the military when you already had a career?" He said, "I got tired of being shot at." And I
Yeah,
was like, "Shot at?" I said, "I thought you said you were a paramedic, man." He was a paramedic in the Twin Cities in Minnesota is where he
yeah,
was at. And he was like, "Yeah," he said, "The area I was in, we were the only ones that still had to wear bulletproof vests and everything." He said, "It's horrible because you would get out there and you would make it the call before the police did, and you'd be seeing 2 gangbangers laying on the ground from opposite gangs, both bleeding out, and you can't
hmm,
get out to help either one of them because if
yep,
you get out and help this one, the other gang is gonna shoot at you
yeah.
for helping them first before
You
yours." He
got
said, "So
cleared.
you have to
Yeah,
sit there and
well, I
watch."
worked in Stockton. I mean, Stockton,
Oh, yeah.
California, yeah, so it's, pretty well known as being, that kind of environment too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was, pretty much. I mean, I wouldn't say getting shot at was an everyday occurrence, but I mean, that was a pretty much everyday occurrence where you're encountering, gang violence and,
Yep.
um, and I I've been out of Stockton. I haven't been there. My last shift as a medic was in 2015. So I'm a little bit removed from it, but it was rough. I remember 2012. I was working 2011, 2012. I was working uh, on the B side, so that would have been like Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights every week. That was,
Oh, wow.
and and like that's, so it was just trauma all the time, penetrating trauma, shooting, stabbings, that sort of thing,
Yep.
all the time. And it's fun for a while, and then it starts to wear you down a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm still, like I'm in therapy right now. I'm still
Yeah.
hyper alert all the time.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like I have that just heightened level of like awareness of my surroundings all the time because especially when you're a medic, like you don't have the benefit of an engine company like you do when you're firefighting. It's just you and
Yep.
your partner,
Yeah.
right? Um, and and so you're watching out for each other, and then but the medic on the rig, I mean, there's so much going on for you, because I didn't like to drive. I didn't enjoy driving code three, so I'm the one navigating. So it's like you have that aspect of it and getting to the call safely and everything,
Yeah.
figuring out the best way to get to the call, and then once you get there, you got to make the decisions on whether or not are we going in, are we staying out, is this clear, is this not clear, is the
Yeah.
scene actually safe, is it not safe, and you don't always make the right call, and that hurts sometimes, and that
Oh,
that
yeah.
can uh, that can really affect you and your partner as well. Um, and then when you're on scene, it's like depending on your partner's level of experience and level of trust with you, um, they may walk right into a horrible situation, and if you're not alert to it, they don't know. It's
Yeah.
like this is not their world. They're new to this as well, and they can't read scenes quite as well as somebody's been doing it for a while. And um, so it's like you always have that kind of that pressure, like being hyper alert to the
Yep.
situation around you. And working nights is a totally different animal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because we're not going in armed. I refuse to wear body armor. I feel like body armor got made paramedics and EMTs make stupid decisions, and to go into scenes they wouldn't normally go into, and so I
Yeah.
I refuse to wear it. But there's this level of alertness that you have to maintain all the time, and once you kind of get your brain set that way, especially in your formative years as an adult, whether between the Coast Guard and that, you just kind of learn it. That just kind of becomes built into how you think, and and process the world around you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I completely get it. A lot of people forget that PTSD isn't just a veterans thing. That goes with law enforcement, it goes with firefighters, it goes with paramedics, because just like you explained, you are constantly seeing things that people shouldn't have to see on a daily basis. The average person that doesn't do this for a career sees it maybe 2 or 3 times in a lifetime. They see something serious happen right in front of them, and you guys are going to calls nonstop. So it's constantly played back in your guys' minds. Just like you said, you made a call, you go home. It's just like anybody else at work. You go home, you're thinking about your day at work. I guarantee you're replaying those decisions and those things
Hmm.
in your mind. And like you said, they wear on you. And I think
Yeah,
a lot of people forget, how much stuff like that does wear on you until you need the help.
yeah.
So I commend you for seeing some
Well, thank you.
therapy and I've been there myself,
Yeah.
done
Oh,
it.
it was hard.
It
Like my wife's been trying to talk me into doing this for years, and I've had a lot of friends say, "Oh, you need to go, go talk to somebody. You're gonna feel better." And I got a lot of guys that I used to work with on the ambulance, as well, and that like have done, counseling and that sort of thing. And I honestly, I don't know. It, my medical background is definitely does a disservice to me because um, I just it took me a long time to be convinced that talk therapy can actually do anything for you.
Yeah. And it's
Like
not
I
easy at
am,
first. After your first few sessions, you're walking out there going, "Yep, I knew this shit was bullshit. Just
and I
bringing up
feel
shit that I
worse.
hate." You
I feel
know?
worse. This is
Yep,
why I didn't want to do it. Yep.
yep. And it takes time, man. It really does.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that because I'm still at that stage where I'm like, this sucks. I don't know why I'm
It
doing this.
it does, man. It takes some time and for me personally, I can say that it never really made things better as far as like, oh, I'm perfectly good with everything that happened, but it has made it easier for me to talk about it with other people now because I've had to talk to them so much with them about it. So
Hmm.
I can now get through some of the stories without breaking down and crying and having issues. And I think that part of it um, has helped.
Yeah.
I'm assuming this is Eric. Eric says, "Let's talk coffee."
You
I'm
saw his coffee roaster.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. I seen that on Facebook, man. That you own a coffee business.
I do, yeah. We get well, it's more like a bakery that also roasts coffee. It's
Okay,
my wife's show. I'm the coffee roaster. She is an incredible baker. She's never made anything I didn't like. Even the stuff she's like, "Oh, this is garbage. I can't serve this," and I'm like, "I'll eat it." It's amazing stuff. So, um, yeah, she is such a gifted baker, and she's passionate about it too. Complete perfectionist.
yeah.
I mean, if you could have like a homemade PhD in baking, I mean, she's gotten it, so
Okay,
she's yeah, so yeah, our business is Distant Mountains Bread and Coffee. She's so the bread we just do obviously locally. I mean, we're not shipping bread anywhere. So like we're going to be in the local farmers market this Saturday, and it doesn't seem to matter how much she bakes, we sell out within about an hour and a half every time we go. So
I'm assuming you live around Eric and that because
yeah, yeah. I think he lives in Waterford. I'm in
okay,
Oakdale, California. Um, I like to call this place Little Slice of Texas in the heart of California.
okay. So
Yeah.
now, did I read on Facebook you used to live in Modesto area?
Yeah, I mean, this is Modesto area,
Is
Oakdale. I
it
mean,
okay?
I'm about, I don't know, 10, 15 miles from Modesto.
We used to play them in football. I lived in a little town called Valley Springs and played for
I know Valley
San
Springs.
Andreas.
No
You know,
kidding.
no,
Cool.
we played, we never won, but I mean, we played, as the San Andreas Rockets. We got beat by you guys at least, twice a year, and, we got beat by the Galt Chiefs at least once a year.
This is a football town.
It is.
They are very, very proud of their football. So,
Modesto, I enjoyed playing because you guys got amazing stadiums. The stadiums that they play in are
oh
like
yeah, Johansson
college in
and
some places. Yeah, man. So,
yeah.
yep, I loved it, man. So, your in your Facebook profile talks about you went overseas and did some is it like missionary work or
Mhm.
what was that with?
So that's actually kind of a long story. So
Okay.
my first visit, my first trip was in 2010 after the earthquake in Port-au-Prince, Haiti.
Okay.
Um, and a mission organization called ABWE was looking for people to go to Haiti, and uh, you know, it was surprising for the amount of support that Haiti was getting. The amount of lip service Haiti was getting after that
Hmm.
earthquake and everything. And there were quite a few volunteers going, but it was really hard to get people to sign up for the kind of medical mission aspect of it. And so I I didn't even know what to expect. I said, "Oh, they're looking for," they said paramedics. Oh, great, I'll go. And I was actually thinking I was going to end up in Port-au-Prince or Cité Soleil or something like that. Working in the area that had been hit by the earthquake, but the aftermath of the earthquake was really, really bad for the rural areas because their infrastructure just been completely cut off.
Yeah.
The most of the hospital actually, I don't think there was a single standing hospital left in Port-au-Prince after the earthquake. So there was a small mission hospital in a small town, kind of southeastish of Port-au-Prince called Fermoth, and they need some medical teams to go out of there and check out some of the rural areas. So we were, sometimes traveling for 2 or 3 hours to get to these villages just out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you could almost see the Dominican border from where we were a
Wow.
lot of times, and these are places where there's no running water, no electricity, no cell phone service. It's just really, really cut off villages, literally the poorest people on the planet. And I was there kind of in a support role and paramedic. I'm not really, we had a doctor and a nurse practitioner with us, and our surgeon and nurse practitioner with us, and they were seeing most of the patients, and um, I was just kind of like doing triage and taking histories, doing vital signs, that sort of thing, and loving it. And then
Hmm.
one day the surgeon that was there, he said, "Look, I'm not gonna be able to go. Where we were going the next day. I'm not gonna be able to go. Um, uh, I need you to be a treater when I'm there." I was, that's not really my training, at this point. And so the nurse practitioner I was with, Kevin, he handed me a book, a textbook, and it's spiral bound textbook. This thing was all tattered and stuff, old book too, and it said "Practicing Medicine in Developing Countries." And I studied that all night long. I read every doggone word. I mean, it's probably 350 word or 350, 400-page book, and I read that whole doggone thing, and I still didn't know anything, but I knew where to find stuff, and
Yeah.
so I probably saw he probably saw 50 patients. I bet you I saw 10 to his 50, um, but I was hooked at that point. I said, "Oh yeah, I got to do this. This
Yeah.
is what I want to do with my life." And so I went back. I went back a few more times to Haiti, doing same sort of thing. One time I went with the surgical team, um, but that kind of sealed the deal. For I was already I was working nights on the ambulance and doing college during the day.
Hmm.
I didn't really have like a clear direction why I was taking classes. I just knew that like you can't be a paramedic forever. It's just
Right.
I knew that my my shelf life was going to expire soon, and so I was kind of looking for the escape hatch, um and then that sealed the deal. I said, okay, I guess I'm going to stay in medicine. I'm going to go be a PA, and believe it or not, I actually got into PA school. Didn't even meet the minimum requirements. I got in one of the most selective PA schools in the country. I got into Stanford my first try. I didn't meet their minimum
Wow.
requirements. Whole time I was there, I was like, "This is a mistake. Like they're gonna kick me out any day." Now,
I'm just
oh
gonna
shoot,
show up one day and they're
you
gonna
weren't
be like,
supposed to be here. Yeah, and I felt like that the whole time. I felt like everybody else was smarter than me, and they're all like just passing all the tests, and I'm just like squeaking by. Um, and and uh, and it was hard because when you make a decision like that, at the time, there were not a lot of paramedic jobs out there,
hmm
and so I left my job, uh, and I had no idea if I could get it back if I failed, And if I failed, we're single income family. There goes everything. There goes my
Yep.
house. There goes, my livelihood. I'm, and luckily, I've got a rock solid wife and amazing kids who, are tough as nails. And so then after, PA school, I did a few more of these little medical mission trips, and really felt like I was calling me to pursue this full time. And um, and my wife was not totally into it at first. She's like, I don't think so. I think you should just keep doing these trips. I'm not going anywhere with you. And then gradually, her heart softened too, and opportunity came up where ABWE said, they'd had some losses in the field recently, and they needed a PA at this little rundown hospital out in the bush in West Africa. And they said, "Hey, we need a PA with," and I've been doing surgery for a few years, and they said we need a PA with some surgical experience to come out here and work in this hospital in Togo. That's where the country was in. The hospital's called Hôpital Baptiste Biblique. It's in a little town called Chico, Togo, or Data, Togo, a little village out there. And we packed up. We, raised funds, amazingly raised funds for a year, and packed up the family. We left and stayed there for a year. And after coming back, I honestly, like, it. I mean, that was the hardest year of my life.
Yeah.
And it's not just because of I could live in an austere setting forever. I'm okay with the developing country setting. I'm okay with, having, non-dependable electricity and water, and
Hmm.
and not being able to, have access to all the, comforts of first world living. But the medical part of it, I felt like I brought a knife to a gunfight when I was there, and it was a heck of a year. And I came back, and I'm like, I think I'm ruined for medicine forever. I don't know if I can continue practicing medicine at this point. I still ask myself that sometimes, if I could continue. And and I'd been home for about a year, and ABWE said, "Hey, look, we need some team leaders. We got some trips coming up, South America, Africa. Want to know if you want to be a team leader?" And these are, like 2 week trips, and they basically, you have no idea. I mean, it's a crapshoot who you're going to end up and who's going to end up here. You're even going to have another, person that can treat patients or not. So,
Yeah.
but yeah. And so then I started doing that. So I'm doing that a couple times a year right now.
Wow, man, and that has to be hard too. 'Cause just getting the like you said, bringing a knife to a gunfight because modern medicine doesn't follow you there. You
No.
guys are having to think outside the box because what you have is what you have.
Hmm.
You're not gonna run down to the local CVS and pick up what you need, you
Yeah.
know? So,
Yeah. Boy,
wow,
that
man.
would have been life changing if we had a CVS.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, you're using your, fourth and fifth choice of medication sometimes.
Yeah,
It's an infection, probably won't respond to to the only antibiotic I got left. Probably not going to respond, but hey, we're going to do it anyway and just pray. And that was a lot of what you end up doing. And you know, not all. So it's, you can't look at like all the different, mission hospital settings as being the same, because you
right,
you can have some in like Kenya where they do have access to modern facilities. It's just not there. Like
right.
their hospital's remote, so they can get somebody to, a hospital where they're going to have um, medical procedures and imaging and that sort of thing. Um,
Okay.
Togo, it's just not that way. And I had to learn that the hard way. Because I would get I when I first got there, I was just like, man, I knew there was a university hospital in the capital, and I said, well, I'm just gonna send everybody. If somebody is complicated, like thinking like, I was in, an American ER, like, oh, this
Right.
this is the type of patient goes to university hospital. That's right. And I had and trauma was daily. It was gnarly trauma we got. Um, and I early on, I had a guy that had a compound fracture his leg, and and me not being confident in my surgical my surgical skills and knowledge, uh, I said, "Get him out." It's like I gave him his first dose of antibiotics, got him on, I cleaned out his wound best I could. I'm like, "You got to go down to a university hospital." He went down to that university hospital, sat there for 2 weeks, never saw a surgeon. By the
Wow.
time he got back, he had osteomyelitis, which is an infection of the bone. Ended up having to get his leg amputated. They came back up to us. And this guy was almost dead. He was, by the time he got to me, he's septic. And I was kicking myself. Oh my gosh, man, I should, like what I would have done for this guy would have been way better than what he received, which was
Yeah.
nothing. And ended up having to amputate the leg because of it. And so I learned from that experience that okay, I'm gonna have to do a gut check every once in a while and just take on some stuff that I wouldn't normally take on some
Yeah.
stuff that I might not be any good at, but like what other option do they have?
Yeah.
But I had great resources back home. I had a team of surgeons that were just a phone call or text away, that I could always come to and say, hey, like I got this going on. Do you think I can do this? Is this, do you think this? And these guys had worked with me, operated with me for years, and do you think this is something I can handle? They say no, you probably can't. And then or they'd say yeah, absolutely, you got to do this. And having those guys behind me, who knew my abilities, knew my skills, were excellent surgeons themselves, really help move that
Yeah.
along.
And that would be
Yeah.
tough, man, because now you're going to question yourself every time somebody gets sent. You call back home, they say, no, you can't handle this. And then you send them back to the other hospital. Man, that first guy's going to be in your back of your mind the whole time. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, is he going to get seen this week?
Yeah.
you know?
I mean, will this guy die from this?
Yeah,
It's
that's
tough.
tough, man.
It is it's and it's just every day is just filled with moral dilemma after moral dilemma, and you don't know the outcome of it most of the time. You
Yeah,
don't know if you helped or hurt, most of the time, and but I did see some amazing, recoveries, stuff that I can't believe I actually managed to accomplish this, and
yeah,
that it's like I mean the stuff like that where you're so outgunned. It's just like you can't take credit for it yourself. God
yeah,
had to do something. Because these things like here that person would have died for sure. And we're
right.
talking about this is in this austere setting, and this guy's making it. And I'm using like rudimentary medicine that I
Yeah.
have access to. So
What
yeah, I
was
mean
the
there's
uh what was the threat assessment down there? I mean, was there a lot of like warlords and crime and stuff like that that mess with you guys or
well, Togo is Togo's a pretty peaceful area for the most part. Um, I found the culture to be just absolutely warm and welcoming. I absolutely love the Togolese people. And there's several tribes. There are like 40 different tribal languages spoken in this tiny little country.
wow.
It's like it's smaller than New Jersey, I think.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, it is
and
small.
it's about 8 million people there, 40 different 40 something different, tribal languages and tribes. Um, the The only time I remember there being any question about, like, okay, are we going to be safe here is election time. And
I get that.
yeah, and we were told, hey, be prepared to pack up and hike over the mountain into Ghana, if things go south, because the embassy's not going to be coming out and helping you guys. So,
Wow.
which that's the expectation. Missionaries don't get rescued. They
Yeah,
they stopped doing that a long time ago. So yeah.
man. Man, that is tough, man. So, where did the author side I mean, you've already lived such a fascinating life, man. I'm afraid to ask, where did the book come from? What made you decide to travel down that path?
I love that question because it had nothing to do with me. So less I can talk about myself, the better at this point. So it's like I have some really great friends, really great veteran friends. One of them, I went to PA school with, and he's never really talked much about his service. He was special operations. He never really talked about his service or anything,
Mhm.
and I never pushed it. It's just, but there were You know how it is when we talk. There's always subtext, right?
Yeah,
We leave a
yep,
lot unsaid,
yep.
and I was really kind of like enjoying the kind of the unsaid portions of some of our conversations, and so um, you know, we've been going talking a lot about just kind of how the you know, the CCP is just kind of taking over Africa right now, and they're, you know, colonizing the country, and kind of like you know what the future holds for, you know, developing countries,
Hmm.
and also, you know, for the U.S. If we're seeing, you know, this kind of happen, and the idea kept evolving, you know, the more we talked about it, and it was just, you know, it was like a theoretical conversation. It was just, you know, a mind exercise kind of thing. We just been talking about for weeks, and and we started wondering if we started wondering, like, okay, now what if it's just, you know, what if corporations are pulling the strings on this, you know, and what, you know, what if everything that, you know, is going on, if we could just like, if we could all boil it down, distill it down to, hey, this is, you know, transnational corporations, you know, starting wars, and you know, fixing races so that, you know, make sure this guy gets elected, this guy doesn't, or make sure this commodity makes it to market, this one doesn't, or, you know, and so that idea just kept evolving. We just kind of came up with this um, very unfortunately plausible story of a transnational corporation kind of becoming a globally dominant world power. Um, but the military aspect of it came into because what we were wondering what would happen, well, I kind of started this conversation, not we, but you know, what would happen if a guy, you know, you get guys who are, you know, special operations, special forces that um they no longer have a country to fight for. What, you know, what happens at that point? You know, like you have a global, you know, technocracy, and no longer and like nations essentially dissolve. Their borders don't matter. Their governments are irrelevant. What happens to those guys? And that's kind of what led me into this story. Talking about my main character. It I did not set out to do this. Just make that clear. His internal struggles are really closely related to my some of my internal struggles. So that
Hey,
wasn't
that
intentional, and it
it
must have been
makes
a little
sense though.
therapeutic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's dealing with, you know, just, you know, the same sort of thing that, you know, where my, you know, my struggle is with continuing my career in medicine. His struggle is continuing in his career. He doesn't know how to do anything else. You can't
Yep.
change careers at 43 years old and, you know, just say, oh, you know what, I don't want to be a soldier anymore. I'm just going to go do this, or I'm going to go home and farm. It's not that easy,
It's not.
you can't do that in medicine either. And that's kind of the world he finds himself in, and that's where the book came from. So, and I gave a really good nutshell explanation of that, didn't
Yeah, man. And
I?
you know, it does make sense about how your character's struggles match up with yours. I mean, realistically, it's coming from your subconscious anyways. You know, you're making up the character and your subconscious is putting life experiences in with it, you know? So to
Yep.
me, that would absolutely make sense, you know? You know, your mind says, "Okay, my character needs to do this," but your subconscious is trying to rationalize your life experiences with that. So,
Mhm.
yeah, it makes perfect sense, man, and I definitely see the therapeutic side to that because podcasting for me has been an outlet for me. You know, like we was talking before the show, I don't give a shit whether one person watches this or 10,000 because I'm selfish. It's about me talking to somebody else and having a good time because I've found help from it, you know, not just the therapy of talking to a therapist, but you know, getting into conversations with people and then realizing, hey, you lived in my area, I lived in my area. Now I'm relating to, you know, my childhood, you know, just little stuff like that. It does make a difference, you know. So I completely get it, man. And like I said, you're the first author I've had on that hasn't been doing a didn't do a biography about their life events or PTSD. And you know, I'm kind of guilty of that too. I'm following down that same road because I wrote a book about my life experiences for
Awesome.
my kids. Well, that's what it's for. I don't care
Yeah.
if anybody buys it. It's my explanation to my kids of why I became one guy and turned into a dick, you know?
It's so important to it's so important to write that though. I mean, it's
It is.
put it down, get it out of your head too,
Yep.
so that you can really, evaluate it and yeah, that's
Yeah.
so important.
Yeah,
That's
but
awesome that you're doing that.
I would love to be able to do, because I was reading through the book that you sent me, and I was reading through it and I was like, man, this is so well wrote. I wish I should write about myself in third character because I suck. And I'm telling my story and I'm reading yours and it's like you are him, you know. I completely see it, man. So
Yeah, I mean, your
you did an
characters
awesome
need to be
job.
alive.
Yeah.
If they're, like, I've got a very active imagination, so it, y- my characters come into life, and it, I think sometimes that you see some authors and you can tell that they're starting to really get into their character, and then
Mhm.
they almost pull away, like they're almost scared to get too deep into it, and it's just this is my armchair quarterbacking the writing process, but you just can't be afraid to really let these characters become real to you, and
Yeah.
let them play this out in their head, because the more real they become, the more real their dialogue is. They're
Yeah.
actually talking like people talk,
Yep.
and they're acting like people act. Then and you can picture every detail of them. You know their life story. Then writing the book is no longer inventing it. Then is you're a journalist, and the
Yeah.
story is just unfolding, and you're just telling what's happening. Um, and I love that part of the process when you get to that point in the book when it just writes itself, and um, the the characterization of people, you got to pull from what people it's not necessarily subject matter. I know. I mean, a ton of research to write it, but the uh, the characters to really be able to you have to observe people, you have to understand people, you have
Mhm.
to just listen. Yeah, like one of my favorite things to do is I just sit there's a little coffee shop in downtown Modesto, and we get some of the most interesting characters coming through that place. And so one of my favorite things to do is just sit there and just eavesdrop on conversations and listen to them talk about their last test at school, or having to get their grandpa placed in a nursing home. It's just stuff like that is
Yeah.
and not just listening to what they're saying, but trying to catch the undertones and understand their personality a little bit from it. And it really helps guide it helps mature your characters for you.
Okay.
Um, so
That does make sense. I'm gonna tell you, man, I'd love to give that a shot sometime. Maybe
you
after I
should.
finish this one, try to write because I love those kind of books, and I think what I liked about yours, it was I was surprised right from the beginning because I went into this thinking, I don't know why, I just assumed it was about, I knew you told me it was fictional when we first started talking, but I was expecting it to be more like um, current war event, you know? So when I went into this and started reading it, I was like, "Oh, wow, this is not what I expected, man." And
Yeah,
I love that about it because it was not anything that I could relate to, as in, like, I had to figure out how would I feel about this situation, because I haven't lived something like that, but I could completely see our country and countries go into that, especially right now. This is like the perfect time for that book to come out because, everybody used to talk about, oh, that guy's tinfoil hat. Well, now that guy's the journalist because there's been a lot of tinfoil hat shit that's been
I
found out to
know.
be true.
I know,
So,
and it's crazy as I'm writing the book, and like people, the people that so I have like a team of advisors, so one of the guys that is on my advisory team, he's a former JSOC colonel. I got another guy who's Army Signal Corps officer. Got a former Navy SEAL. I have a research neuroscientist. I have a guy who works on um, integrating AI systems into medical charts. It's like so
yep,
it's like, I've got these really vast, but they send me articles all the time. They're like, "Hey, look." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, man. This is like my book's no longer fiction." It's just bizarre.
it is. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So, I'm definitely gonna be buying your book. I would have already had it here had I known that. I didn't know it had actually already released. So I will be buying your book on my
Cool.
back shelf back here. Every author I've came on, I bought the book, and it's like my own little personal collection of people I've talked to and their stories. Like I said, you're going to be the first fictional book that's going to be on my shelf because
Well,
everybody else
great.
is biographies. Not that they're not great; they're good books, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, man, I'm definitely going to be buying it, and that's why I asked you when we first started talking. I said this is going to be a series of 5, right? Because I'm looking forward to it, man.
Yeah, well, the way I left it off, I better be at least a
Yeah,
second book because
yeah,
I'll get people angry.
yeah.
Yeah, because that's a big cliffhanger.
It is.
Um, yeah, and actually, so the book wasn't actually initially going to end there. I had written about another 40,000 words. Um,
Really?
yeah, and there so there were a couple of there were a whole bunch of reasons why we end up splitting it. One is that being an unknown breakout author. Yeah, it's a big commitment. You're gonna pick up a 90,000 word tome or a 100,000 word tome from a guy like me, you've never heard of, and
Mhm.
you're gonna fork out $26 for a book that size, and
Yeah,
like it's I don't want to ask people to take a risk. I
right.
want people to say, okay, look, this is manageable. It's 59,000 words. That's not a huge commitment to get into, and also the if I had continued the story, if I'd continued going, um, I wouldn't have been able to stop at 100,000 words because it would have been the story would have been so incomplete. It wouldn't even feel like a cliffhanger. It would
Yeah,
just feel like I didn't know where to take the story if I'd stopped where I was planning on stopping. So I decided, okay, I'm going to split this first book that I was planning on doing. I'm going to split it into two, and that way I can work up to that ending much more naturally, organically. I don't feel like I have to rush it,
yeah,
and we can just let the story unfold.
yeah,
So
man. Dude, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. And I don't know that anybody. I don't know who all is listening or that that's on, but if you haven't wrote a book, I didn't realize until I started this. And I'm like you, I don't like to leave things unfinished. So at some point I will get it finished, but this radio station is just taking a lot more time than I had expected. But
good.
because I literally before the radio station released, I was almost halfway into the book. And then the
Wow.
radio station started 1 May and I'm still halfway into the book because I haven't been able to do much more.
Yeah, I get
And,
it.
you
I
know,
get it.
but it's tough, man, and I'm writing about my life. I mean, I was physically there, I can picture a lot of the stuff. You're writing about things that takes time and research and everything else, and I'm struggling. So I can imagine, man, how many times did you have to go through and make changes? Because that's the part, I keep going back and I'm like, "Oh, well, that ain't right," or, "I need to change this," or, "This word choice is wrong."
Oh
Man,
man, that's just a constant process.
yeah.
So a lot of you write your first. You try not to go back and do many edits after you do your first draft.
Mhm.
Or during while you're writing your first draft, just get it out. And if it ends up being 150,000 words, you gotta scale it back to 70. So be it. But you got to get all those words out there because it's much easier to cut stuff than it is to add stuff later that
Yeah.
make it flow well. Um, but I end up having to do both those things at some point. Ordering chapters is tricky because each chapter is a scene,
Yep.
and you're like, actually, that scene would work better here, or yeah, if I cut to that scene right now, it kind of it's going to be hard to come back and understand what's happening. So you make a lot of changes like that as far as the order of the story. I I go in having more than one ending in mind. So for this one, I had quite a few endings in mind. So as you learned with the book, there are a lot of threads.
Mhm.
There's a lot of stories going on at once, and you got to keep them straight because that drives me crazy when you read books. Like
Yeah.
I love Jared Tolkien's Fellowship of the Ring series, but there's so many threads. I'm having to go back and reread stuff
Yeah.
constantly when I go through that book, and I'm not smart enough to do it. So, what I or to
I
enjoy
struggled
to
in the
do it and
movie.
enjoy it. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So, when I've got all these threads, it's like I really need them to be cohesive. I need to be able to leave off on one and then come back to it, and you still remember what happened. And so because of that, because I have all these threads, I have multiple endings in mind when
Yeah,
I'm starting the book, and then I kind of let the characters and story guide me to which ending is going to be most appropriate for the whole thing. And at least that was the approach I did with this book anyway. And um, it so you end up rewriting a ton because you think you're going this direction, and then a character just won't behave. You're like, no, I wanted you to why did you do this? And they won't. And you're just,
yeah,
okay, I guess it's a different story. We're going a different direction. And I really feel like that is the most natural way, to create a story that actually feels like this is happening, is
yeah.
if you're not forcing anything,
Let it
and
take a life of its own.
mhm.
That
There's
makes
something
sense.
in our brains that allows us that just kind of gives us that sort of innate sense of what could really happen, or what makes sense, what how people really act, and what how people don't,
Yeah,
and or how stories unfold and how they don't. And and that's why a lot of times it's so easy to spot a liar for us, because we're just like, "Ah, that just doesn't, that doesn't sit right. I don't know why. I don't know specifically what it is about what you just said that I don't believe,
yeah,
but I don't
yeah.
believe it." And
Yep.
that's why. And I think you have to be really aware of that when you're writing fiction, that people are gonna say, "Hey, that's bullcrap." It's like, there's no way. That's stupid. And if you get hung up on one little thing in the story, it could ruin the entire book for you.
Yeah. So I never really thought about it like that, but that is true. I think a lot of people that read like these biographies, like what I'm writing, they read it with the intent to learn something. Well, when they're reading your book, they're reading something that they want to live. They want to feel like they're a part of it and they can picture it and they can see it. And I think that's where the difference is. I don't think a lot of people go into the biography side of it in the hopes that they can feel how you're living or as much as they're trying to learn about your story,
Mhm,
you know? So, yeah, I could see how if at the end of the day they're going through your book saying, "Oh, this is full of shit."
mhm.
They're just not relating to it, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's not like you've got it's not like you've got a sworn commitment from your reader,
Right. Yeah.
and so you you owe it to the people that buy your book you know to put out something that's what's a good word for it, is a book that's honest, even it's fiction,
Yeah.
like it's an honest fiction. um is and so one of the things and I love thrillers. I love thrillers, right? But one of the things that drives me nuts about some thrillers I read is that they they throw in things just for entertainment value,
Yeah.
right? They aren't really there for the story, like explaining in great detail some sort of gruesome, torture scene or something like that. It's like,
Right.
there's no reason. It doesn't help the story. I can't imagine a story where that's actually necessary
Yeah.
to tell a better story. And so they're throwing something in there for entertainment. I really feel like that's insulting to readers, to do that. Like,
Yep.
these people are kind enough to buy your book and actually, like, take a risk and read what you wrote. I mean, they're putting a level of trust in you that you got to take seriously, because
Yep.
it's incredibly disrespectful to treat them like they're stupid, or like they're the lowest common denominator. It's just, and unfortunately, in the good writers, I mean, the ones that really, really, get a lot of books published, I just don't get that vibe from them, that
Yep.
they're doing that. It's like, one of my
Yeah.
favorites is Joshua Hood. He wrote the Treadstone series. He's an excellent writer, and he never you never feel like he's talking down to you, never feel like he's over explaining.
Mhm.
Um, his it's it's not, he assumes that, like, this was always Hemingway's thing too. Like, he just assumes that you're smart when you're reading his book.
Right.
And it feels good when you're reading it. You feel like, okay, there's a mutual respect, between he and
Yeah.
I, and because anybody that writes like this must be, respectful of the readers. And um, so I really, I try to, harness that mode, that personality, in his writing. and apply that to mine as well.
Yeah, I feel that same way about podcasters. So I listen to a lot of different podcasts. Some are well known, some are not, you know, and nothing irritates me more than when you read a title that is more clickbait. And then
Hmm.
you listen to the show and you're like, "What in the
Yeah,
hell are you doing?"
yeah,
You
it's just
know?
disrespectful.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't know this, but, I mimic, Joe Rogan's podcast for my titles, the way I do it,
Hmm.
because I love the way he does it. "This is who's on the show." That's the
Yeah,
title, you know?
yeah,
What their name is, and a little bit of, in, like, 1 word or 2 word increments of what their life story's about, so you kinda get an idea of what they're gonna talk about, you know? And I love that because then it allows me as the person to say, "Okay, yeah, I'd like to hear about that." Or sometimes, like, when he has MMA people on, I don't really care to hear it. So, I go to the next thing. But
yeah.
it's honest. I know when I'm reading the title what I'm expecting, what I'm getting. And
Hmm.
yeah, I completely get that with a book. It should be that same way. Even if the book's free, your reader's giving up time. He's giving up a commitment to sit down and read your book, which is probably even more rare now with audiobooks and everything else out there. But somebody that can literally sit down in a chair and not have a TV on and reading your book, man, that says something about the author. Somebody's giving up their time, which is worth more than what they pay for the book in most cases.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and yeah, I have to pinch myself all the time. Like somebody's actually reading this. I look up. Oh my gosh, another 20 people bought a book. You got to be kidding me. Um, and my number. This is a very humble start. As far as like, because I don't really know how to market myself and
Right.
everything, I'm learning the whole process. But it is really cool to meet and talk to other creatives and,
Yeah.
kind of find out what their, experiences with, how to create something that is, both, winsome, something that people, like, while also not overselling it or making it sound like something it's not.
Yeah.
Um, and,
And I think that goes back to what we were talking about before the show about some of these veteran groups. You can tell the ones that are there because they literally want soldiers
yeah,
and people to feel better. And then you can tell the ones that are looking at their numbers and saying, "Yes, I got 800 more people to like me, 800
I
more people
know.
to follow me." And
Yeah.
I think it goes in that same care. If you just care about the product, the rest will probably work out in itself. You know, it
Yeah.
is what it is. If you don't mind me asking, man, how did you go about? So, like, when I decided to write this book, I looked at it and I said, "Oh, well, I guess I can go through Amazon and just upload it in Amazon and
Totally can.
publish it
Yeah.
that way." And,
Mhm.
because for me, it was more like I told you, it was more for my kids. I don't really give a shit if anybody else reads it, because that wasn't the purpose of why I wrote it.
Mhm.
But, how did you go about finding a publisher? Because I would have no idea even how to go about doing something like that.
So I had talked to a publisher um, a few years ago about another book that I wrote,
Mhm.
and he didn't like it, and and I ended up not liking it either. I don't think I ever finished that one. Maybe I will someday. I'll make it into something better, but and uh, and so I just had this idea, and they were this publishing company was hosting a writers conference.
Okay.
Um, I wasn't invited. I showed up and they, and I just paid my fee. And they're like, "Oh, we don't see your name anywhere on this list," but they let me in, let me stay and stuff. And then I pitched my idea to the president of the publishing company.
Wow.
And he said, "Okay, let's do it." So um
Wow.
yeah, I mean that is yeah, I'm I don't know how to do it. I have no idea how to navigate this world, man.
Yeah.
This is. it's all a big black box, and I'm just kind of like feeling my way around through it. But
I I think the way you did it is the best way to explain it. You grab your nuts and you walk in and you pitch yourself. That's what
yeah,
you do.
pretty much, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and so, and I mean, I was surprised. I was like, "This is," I'm thinking, worst case scenario, I go to a conference, I learn a few things,
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
so, and they don't pick it up, or they don't show any interest in it. So, yeah, it's
You
I
know,
still like if I'm
I was just sitting here
if
thinking, man, how many soldiers have amazing stories to tell? And because of the isolation and stuff like that, they never even thought about going in and doing something like that. They may, I've talked to a lot of soldiers that have started books, and they've started writing. Maybe they're not calling it a book. Maybe it's a journal, a diary or something, you know. And when you talk to them, they're just like, yeah, no way. I'm not going to go into there and try to pitch myself like you did, you know. They're not going to like it. They're not interested,
Mhm.
And I think a lot of more people should do that, man. You know,
If you believe in your book, and you should, it's like,
if you take the time to write it, you should, yeah.
but you got just believe in it. Um, I think there are two reasons. One is like they don't people don't really believe that their book is any good, and that's fine.
Yeah,
You can fix that. If your book is terrible, you can find a writing coach, you can find an editor that can help you make it into something, pristine and perfect.
right,
That it's going to cost you, but you can do it.
right,
That's not you know off the table. Um, and the other thing is that I think a lot of people fear that if they get shut down, that they are the ones getting shut down, not their
yeah,
book.
right,
And I think that the I was just in the right mental place at the time. I'm like,
yeah.
if he hates it, he just doesn't like my book. He's not saying I don't like you. He's not saying
It's
you
not
suck. You'll
personal.
never make it in this industry. He's just
Yeah,
saying that book is stupid. No, it's
yeah.
like, and I can live with that because I'm not my book.
Yep.
Um, yeah,
I never
I'm
thought about
totally
it that
prepared
way.
for that.
That's a great way to look at it, man. I never because like you said, somebody puts their life into a book and they write it and they forget there is a business side to this. That company
Mhm,
that you're trying to get to publish you isn't doing it because, oh, he's a veteran man. I should
mhm,
help him out. No, they're doing it because they think they can make some money off of it. They're a business like anything else,
mhm,
you know. So them saying no isn't anything personal, it's business, you know?
mhm.
So, yeah, I do get that. I never thought about looking at it that way, but yeah, that's a great why. And I asked that question because, I'm still just gonna upload mine to Amazon, but, there's
It's a
I'm
great way
sure
to do
there's
it.
somebody out there, that is looking to do it more serious than I am, so, I asked that
I would
question
be
because they ma
self-publishing if I didn't want to make a career out of it
Right.
eventually.
Yeah.
Um, is self-publishing is the way to go, for a number of reasons. One, you have so much more control over your book.
Yeah.
If you release your book and you're like, oh my gosh, I just found some errors in it, or oh, I didn't like the way that the typesetting worked, or man, that title just doesn't pop enough. Like, you
Mhm.
can just go and change it.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, it's my book. I can do whatever I want to it. You're getting you're getting a sizable amount of royalties. I'm actually getting my publisher's cutting me a great amount of royalties compared to most other publishers. But sometimes you're getting 12% of the total
Wow.
price of your books. I mean, a lot of these guys are getting $1 a piece, from their books, and that they put all this work into it, and then they sell 100 of them,
Yeah.
and it's heartbreaking, um, and the when you do a self-published book, you're getting a good portion that you know you're never. I mean, you might get rich off it. I don't know. I mean, if you're an amazing writer and you write an amazing book, you'll if you're better than me, you will. But the but at least you're getting some sort of reward for the time
Right.
you put into it. And if I
Yeah.
I don't even want to calculate how many hours I spent on my book. Like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
would, I'd probably have to make, $300,000 on my book to actually, make it worth it.
Right. Yeah,
But
absolutely.
it's just, I mean, to make it worth it financially,
Right.
I just in but it's like when you're writing, it's like you've got a story that you want to tell, and if even if it costs you to tell it, it doesn't matter because
Yep.
you want to tell your story.
I
And
mean,
and I think
that's
that's a place you need to
podcasting
get to.
right there.
Yeah, right.
You pay to tell your story. You don't make no money off of it.
No, I know.
I,
Yeah.
I laugh, man, because and I was under that assumption with writers too. When I had the first author on here, I was like, "Oh man, he wrote a book. He's probably like rich. Sold all these books." And I didn't realize until I started talking to some about how the royalties work and stuff like that. I should have known because the radio stations like that too. For the licensing, I pay like 1.7% of my gross income to them, and
Mhm.
the songwriters and the musicians get 0.002 cents per uh, um,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And if
I
you notice,
know.
there is
Oh,
more zeros than there is
I
in cents.
know.
They're not even
That
getting a penny per song
Mhm.
that I play. I mean, I think they get a small percentage of that 1.7% too, but but that's where all the work went on, you know?
But if you're creative, if you're an artist or a writer or something, like,
All of them don't care.
you need to yeah, you need to be in the place where, like, I would do this even if I had to
Yep.
pay to do it.
You
And
don't know how many, artists is like, "Play my music, man. I don't care. I want you to play it." And I'm like, "You don't understand. You signed with a company that I'm not licensed with. I can't." They care.
oh,
They want their
yeah,
money, you
yeah.
know? If you were completely independent, then I could,
Wow, I
And,
didn't know it worked like that.
oh, it does. Yeah, 'cause, so there's 3 companies. There's, BMI, which is who I'm licensed with, and
Mhm,
then there's, ASCAP, ASCAP. I don't know what
mhm.
it stands for, and then there's a 3rd that I don't know anybody that uses them. But, they're copyright companies. That's what they're signing. They're signing with a company that's saying, "Hey, if somebody copyrights me, you will go after them and collect my royalties." That's what they're paying them for. And, so even though I'm getting written permission from the person that wrote the song and the person that played the song to play their song, it doesn't work that way because they signed an agreement with somebody that you're not gonna let anybody play this for free because we're gonna go
Mhm.
after them for copyright.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
yeah, it's
Yeah, and meanwhile, artists are,
they're just
you
trying to
know
get their music out, man.
yep, just trying to get their music out, yeah.
Yep.
Maybe they could headline a show sometime or yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I get it.
that's what I started the radio station for was to help them network and get their music out, and, man, I went into this so naive. I was just like, "Man,
Me
these
too.
these guys have such a hard time." They're like podcasters, man. You get swallowed up by algorithms, and after your first week, man, nobody you watch your numbers spike that first week, and then after that, they just drop off, and there's nobody there no more because the algorithm's not showing you to anybody anymore,
Mhm,
and, I said, "Man, I just create a radio station. It's 39.95 a month. Ain't no big deal, man. They'll just give me their music. I'll just play it, and
mhm.
people will be able to hear it." It
No,
don't work that way.
no.
It is tough, man. Yeah,
Well, a lot of times when, we have these, good idealistic intentions, this is this is what
yeah.
happens.
It's what
Yeah.
happens when you wanna do something with your heart, but you forget that you're still in a capitalistic world.
Yeah. And I don't run things, so,
Yeah, I
that's
don't
the
either,
problem.
man.
Well, I mean, I feel like when you do something like this, like, because anytime you're taking a risk, especially, creative endeavor, it's like anytime you're taking a risk like that, y y your purpose needs to be something other than, making money or being
Yeah,
famous or something like that, and, like, I don't I would never wanna be famous. That's not a, that's not a burden I'd wanna bear,
yeah,
but,
me neither.
and I never will be, so it's fine.
Yeah,
So, my wish is granted,
yeah,
but the, but, as far as, like, when I wrote this book, it's like part of it is that this is, I wanna tell a story that, when somebody reads it, like, um, just to put the story into perspective, I don't think we even talked about actually what the story is about really yet.
no, we have
Have
not.
no, okay.
I didn't know
Do you
how
mind if
much
I
how much you wanted to release,
I
so
I feel like I'm being cagey about it for no reason. So,
Yep.
So,
Go ahead and share it, man. I'll let you
okay,
share what you want to share.
thank you. I really appreciate that. That's my first time I've actually shared it anywhere but on a Facebook post.
Okay.
So it's uh, in in a dystopian scenario where we have a global technocracy that's kind of made it so that governments and militaries are just irrelevant, superfluous, things that don't matter, and you've got these three soldiers that were together fighting for the U.S. Army in a battle that is kind of like your battle from Mordor. You're right; it's the Battle of Ammon, and the nations lose to this global superpower. As a result, these three soldiers end up kind of on the run. They're fugitives. They're being hunted by this. All soldiers are being hunted by them, and especially anybody's special operations, special forces soldiers are going to be are hunted by them, and they ended up falling in with a with like a syndicate called the Sand Dollar Syndicate, and I kind of it's kind of tongue in cheek. Every once in a while, I'll call them pirates in the book because that's kind of what they are. It's kind of how these mercenaries or this like the proper term probably they're PMC or something, but
Mhm.
you know and all the odds are stacked against them. Like these guys, they're facing a global superpower that nobody in their right mind would go up against. They they know everything. They own everything. They are stronger. Their reach seems like it has no end. And this hopeless situation that they're in, they have to make a decision. Are we going to march forward and continue fighting, or are we going to hide and try to live a peaceful life, eke out a peaceful existence in obscurity, and hunger and need, while the rest of the world suffers. And you know, the message that really drove me to finish this book, and I had to really, and this is in the front of my mind the whole time I'm writing this, is that um, there are a lot of people out there, especially talking to us veterans and responders, that as time goes by and we feel like we're more and more outcasts all the time,
Mhm.
and then you add to that, like, the PTSD thing, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because on one hand it's like the awareness is good, and they're getting word out, and we're getting resources available to us, but also it does kind of paint people with PTSD as being kind of dangerous,
Yeah.
and if you see, if you watch movies with guys with PTSD, they are dangerous, and that's just not the case. Unfortunately, it's just they need to be understood,
Right. Yep.
and we need to understand guys who are suffering from this lack of hope, and they feel like their purpose is taken from them, and they feel like that the country they would have laid down their life for doesn't like them anymore, and wants to get rid of them, or prefers that they just shut up and sit down, um and even in that scenario, even if that never changes, the fact that you can still have hope in those situations. There's still hope for. I mean, there's still a reason to continue to fight, continue
Yeah.
to work toward a positive end. That it's a message that I want to put across, because honestly, like, I'm preaching to myself there. It's like that has been a long struggle for me. And it's just like trying to keep that little tiny flame of hope, lit. Um, and that's what the story is. It's a story of guys who have no reason at all for hope, and kind of how they navigate that, and what they do, and how they show the grit and resilience that's necessary in order to come out the other side, in that scenario. So
Man.
that is why I wrote the book,
Yeah.
and that, because uh, it's a fun story, and um, I think that if you're not looking for the theme, you may miss it, uh, and that's certainly certainly because I'm learning,
Oh,
but also
absolutely. Yeah.
because that's that it yeah, I don't want it to be front and center. I don't want it to feel like I'm preaching in the book at all.
Right.
because that's also kind of disrespectful. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Let me ask you one more question. So all that time that you were spent, in these third world countries, man, did that help kind of paint this picture? Because I picture kind of, like you said, this government, or not a government, this corporation that is basically pressed down on the people to where now they are similar situations. They're in these third world countries, where they don't have much stuff, and you got these group of guys that are fighting to bring themselves back up against this government. Did how those people live kinda help you paint any of that picture, or
absolutely, yeah.
yeah,
Um, yeah, so I actually started. It was going to be about the CCP, and then
mhm,
and the more I thought about it, the more I talked about it, the more I researched it, I realized that really that's unfair because it's not just them.
right, yeah,
It's like we have corporations that victimize people in other countries all the time.
Nike.
Um, yeah, thank you. Yeah, exactly. I mean, but, and even like, mining companies
Oh, yeah,
and stuff, and you'll never hear about it, like you got to go to the Congo and you'll see it, or Uganda and you'll see it, or, but yeah, um, so the Belt and Road Initiative, it's a fascinating thing to look into if you really want to, jump into that and check it out. You just read about it online and how China aims to, you know, recreate the Silk Road from Africa to China. Um, I got to see it firsthand, and in several countries actually, and see the infrastructure that was being built, and watch these countries slowly default one by one on their loans, and end up having to give away seaports. I mean, look at Djibouti. You know,
yeah.
um, that's a Chinese military base now. You know, and I think there's some airports in East Africa that are probably going to end up, Chinese military bases as well. So,
We may not be that far behind it,
nope.
you know?
So
Yeah,
yeah, and so I mean, definitely did it, and one of the saddest things is like a lot of people just they just don't realize it because they don't a lot of people don't see past today. Like they're like, well, what happens, 5 years from now when we default, or 10 years or 20 years from now when we default, that doesn't matter. Like,
right.
I need food today. I'm hungry
Yep,
today. I need to be able to have a road that I can get my stuff to market today.
yeah.
And that's what they're thinking about. And how can you blame them?
No,
Like,
you can't,
absolutely. Like that
you know?
their situation is as close to hopeless as you can be, and they're gonna take whatever handout they can get because, like,
Yep,
they're just trying to survive. They're trying to feed their families, and you know what? I would too. It's
yeah.
like,
That's
I
why,
you know
I used to be that guy that preached about, buy American, buy America, buy American, and then I got out of the military and I started a trucking company, and I learned real quick about profit margins and overhead and everything else that goes along with it. And yeah, man, I don't know how some of these mom and pops could even begin to compete, with these little boutiques and
Oh, I
stuff
know.
just to make a living for themselves. I'm not even talking about being like the next Walmart. I'm talking about just to make it to keep their store open,
Tell me
because,
about it.
if they have to buy American stuff, they are literally paying 70, 80% more than what, these companies are paying for having 5,000,000 things shipped from China,
Mhm.
so, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you're not far off, man, and,
Nope.
who knows, maybe one day your fiction book will turn into a, futuristic, fact.
I really hope not. I really hope that maybe maybe
Well,
the
let's
right person sees this, be like, "Oh, wait, maybe we need to pump the brakes a little bit here." But
let's wait till the 5th book comes out, and
yeah.
we'll see if that's the way we want it to go.
Yeah, yeah. I'm aiming toward a happy ending, but, my characters tell me what to do. I just report on it, so
Absolutely, man. Well, brother, I'm gonna tell you, when I share this on Spotify, I will definitely have a link to your book, and,
thank you.
dude, you have such a fascinating life, man. I mean, who
Thanks.
would have ever thought we opened the show from the Coast Guard and ended up in Africa and everywhere else where else doing medical treatments to writing a book, man. What
I
an
can't believe it
amazing
either.
story, brother. I'm gonna tell you, man, I'm happy for it. Everybody that's listening, man, I've had it down here at the bottom. It's now time to go to Amazon, pick up Lucky's Hand on Amazon. Um, you can go to his Facebook page. Is it just your name? Is it Zach
Yeah, it's
Greenlee?
ZD Greenlee, I think. Yeah.
ZD Greenlee on
Mhm.
Facebook.
Twitter
I
ZD
will.
Greenlee, Instagram ZD Greenlee.
Yep, and I will definitely also share the look. So you know when you go find this episode on Spotify, the link will be there. You can click it; it'll take you directly to his book, and I'll have a link to his Facebook page as well. Um, Zach, dude, I appreciate you coming on, man. What a story, brother.
Thank you. I really good time. Thank you very much. I
Me
love
too,
this
man.
format. This is a blast. So
Yeah,
thanks for
dude,
having
I
me on. You got a great show.
I appreciate it, man. I love it, and like I said, dude, I will be I won't be your first customer because I didn't know it was already released, but I will definitely be a customer. So,
Awesome. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that.
all right, brother, I appreciate it, man. You take care and be safe.
All right, you too. Thanks.
Bye bye.
Bye.